Hello interwebs, Max here, and today we're going to be looking at my favorite top 10 weapons, melee weapons here in Warframe. I'll be doing a quick run of a level 60 enemies down there, just a quick run for the majority of them, except for the first one. The reason I like the first one, and the reason it's number 10 on my list, has nothing to do with its performance, nothing with its ability to do anything special, except look freaking amazing. Now, as you can see, Zenistar, I put the Cleaving Whirlwind on it, and I actually have, in my opinion, a pretty decent build for this. I did completely build it for status, just based on the little disc you throw out. I don't really know how to build this weapon because I don't really use it as much as I should. I just basically put this on when I go into relays or to dink around on low-level missions. So the build I have on it now is ridiculously huge. Is this. Now, again, it's not a power build, it's not an end-all be-all build, but the blast and corrosive really helps. I get stuck in the blast and get knocked over really often, and then you can use other weapons to finish them off, because you can throw the disc and switch to different weapons. Like I said, I'm not going to run any missions with this just because I'm not really comfortable using it as an actual weapon. It's more of just a accessory to put in your back for me. I need to get a different sheathing or make it visible when it's not on me, but this thing looks just amazing, and the fire just kind of adds to the effect. That's the reason it's number 10. Number 8 is the Silva and Aegis Prime. These weapons just came out with the Oberon Prime, and I am really happy with how they look. The shield kind of looks like some kind of bug flying thing. It looks really cool. This is the build I have going on it. Again, it's not like an end-all be-all build. I just kind of had fun with it. Healing return, because the status is pretty high on this, and the kind of a jump attack you have does pretty good. I haven't used this weapon in anything as high as a level 60 mission, so this actually might be a little interesting. I'm not saying this is going to go well, but let's see. And before I fall off the end right at the beginning. Now this thing, I believe, when you block, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you block, I think it has an upgrade to its status chance when you absorb abilities and block. Sorry, critical chance and status chance. I really don't think critical on this was too big of a deal. I mean, I've got it completely built for status, and it's doing really, really well. Oh, crap, healing agents. I'll switch that up. As you can see, it's doing pretty good against level 60s. Once you get up into the higher levels, you have to play with the build, probably be a little more serious with it. But that's what I'm running so far, and it comes in at number 9 just purely for it's good enough to run 60 plus, and the looks are just awesome. Number 8, we have the Orpheus. You can't really see it there because it's really tiny in your hand, but this weapon is really good. Teshin used this weapon to hold you in place during the War Within quest, I believe. Spoilers. Now, this weapon is not, in my opinion, endgame worthy, but the ability it has is really cool. You can kind of focus out a target and take them out of the fight for a short amount of time. So this is the build I'm running on it now. Whirlwind Focus Energy for basically the special ability it has. You'll see how that works when I get in there if I can pull it off. Again, I don't use this weapon too often, but it is a really fun weapon to just have, well, just goof off with at lower levels. You can set it up for higher levels for sure, but Ancient Healer Exodus. There we go. I just don't really run this kind of weapon very often. Okay, there, and then there. See, he's caught up in the air taking damage. Now the actual damage on this weapon isn't the greatest, but the main reason for using this is the channeling ability. You have to channel and then throw it. The regular throw isn't the greatest, but I mean it does, I guess, okay damage. It's more of a status, but the channeling is what's really at it. See, it hovers in place, does okay damage. Wasn't really paying attention to my health there, but like I said, I don't use it as endgame. I use it just to take. If it's like a capture target, I'll use this just to hit it up to make it really easy. Stuff like that. It's a really fun weapon to use, but not exactly the most realistic. I put this higher up than the Sylvan Aegis just simply because I really like the effect. It's really helpful in a specific kind of mission. If you're in a big problem and there's only one ancient healer, you can pull them out, or if there's a nullifier and you just can't really get to them, you can kind of pull them out. I think the nullifier still gets his bubble back if you're holding him up, but as long as he can't move, he can't really get closer to you. So yeah, it's a really cool effect, really interesting and unique special ability. And number 7, we have the Telos Boltes. These weapons are basically, I would call them fidget spinners because they're spin to win. You slide, spin, attack pretty much everything with these. They do some pretty wicked damage pretty quickly. The build that I'm running on them right now, mostly status based, running up 85% status. And again, this is, if you look at the spin damage, the spin attack is 6674.2. Berserk is going to help out because Maiming Strike gives you, like I said, 90% sliding, critical chance while sliding, and then the bonus to the status is going to give you some pretty nice puncture procs as well as blasting corrosive. I mean, this weapon works pretty well. I mean, I've only ever really had success with it. Slide by, and everything's dead. And as you can see, that guy got hit from really far away. The range on these things is pretty good. It's worth modding for, in my opinion. It's actually, I've run this in sortie 3s, assassinations and stuff like that to take care of trash mobs. I've run these in raid, and they're really viable weapons. The problem that I have with them, and the reason they're so low on the list, is because they're not really fun to use. They're just ridiculously effective. I mean, just sliding and attacking isn't exactly my idea of fun. But I mean, they're really effective, and they do what they're supposed to. So that's why they're number 7. And speaking of doing something right, here is the Lesion. Now, I'm not a really big fan of these type of weapons, polearm stabs, but this one is definitely one that does what it's supposed to do, and then some. The build that I'm running is obviously a status build, 84%. I did take off the ice for blast, just I found it a little annoying to hit enemies that were on the ground if they were at a little bit of a distance, like maximum range on this thing. Spoiled Strike, I found, just added that little bit of extra damage that I needed to help me get over the little hump that I was having. But Corrosive Heat, and then I put Condition Overload in here, just to, again, help out with that little bit of damage. Healing Return in here, simply because it does do a good amount of damage, but it doesn't do stupid damage, so you are hitting enough times where you are going to be helping with the healing. If you don't want to put the healing in there, you can switch it out for pretty much anything. I'd put a Buzzkill in, but it's not Buzzkill. You can probably throw another stats mod in there and go Blast, but again, that's just my problem. Again, it does really good. You're not going to see any problems with this. It always does what it's supposed to, and then some. I mean, these enemies aren't even weak to any of the abilities that I have on this weapon. It doesn't attack the fastest, but I mean, because it is a pole armor, it has those awesome spin attacks that attack, 2-3 times in a second. So it does proc quite often. These guys are all dying a little quick to really show you how much damage you can start doing with Condition Overload. If you're on this with like an Oberon or a Saren and you're proccing other status effects as well, you can do some ridiculous damage. I think I left somebody behind there, but whatever. So yeah, comes in at number 6 because of just pure awesomeness. I mean, getting hit by those spikes would hurt like hell, let alone being procced by set on fire. Yeah. Number 6 is the Nikana Prime. Now, I used to use the regular Nikana quite a bit, and then Dragon Nikana, and then this thing, when I got this, was just awesome. I prefer this to all the other Nikana, pretty much any other blade. This and Broken War kind of had a battle in my mind just because of the nostalgia that Broken War had for me. But Nikana Prime definitely won over it. I'm a huge fan of how this works, how fast it is. I kind of have a mixed build on it, I believe, because it is pretty viable for status, and it is pretty viable for crit chance there. Sorry, drew a blank. So I do have Blood Rush on here, Berserker, True Steel, Body Count, and then I do have a couple of, just to get me on Corrosive, I have Virulent Scourge and Voltaic Strike, just the dual stat mods. Help me out a little bit there, put some status on. Again, you're going to see this thing just, it does really well. For fairly low damage, it swings ridiculously fast, and then once Berserk kicks in, you just, well, you can see. Now the Nikana weapons aren't my absolute favorite weapons, but again, they're up there. And the Nikana Prime, in my opinion, is like the best single-handed sword you can run. If I'm running Excalibur, I'll pretty much always run this. It is nice with its passive, so Interfere is not really doing much. So there you go, Nikana Prime does what it's supposed to do. Not really much else. Probably one of the few weapons that I would recommend running a mixed build on, just simply from the way it works. You can definitely run this endgame, no problem at all. Swordy, stuff like that, you'll have no problem running this. There are a couple better options which we'll get to, but you'll definitely, if this is what you have, you're not going to be upset with what you have. Now, to weapons that do well more than what you think they will. We have the Atarax. Now there are so many different variations on some really good builds for this. Slide builds, just straight up status effect builds using Condition Overload. I've used quite a few builds on this and they're all very viable. But again, I don't like sliding to win, and then just relying entirely on status is kind of not something I like to do on this weapon. Now, I'm running a crit build with Weaving Wounds for a little bit more status chance, but that status chance is pretty much just a proc slash. Pressure point and reach. This thing's reach is ridiculous to start off with. Prime reach is just prime reach makes it just amazing. Berserker just add a little bit more speed as we go along. Blood Rush, obviously. Body Count to help with Blood Rush, and Organ Shatter just for a little bit extra critical damage. I believe critical damage stacks with Slash. So as you're going to see here, it's really no problem. This weapon does what it's supposed to do. There is a little bit of a ramp up on it, but once you get going, it's a little ridiculous. You start proccing Slash. Oh, what the heck? Well, he's giving me like crits. You start proccing Slash. That works into your combo counter. It's just a little ridiculous. The range on the thing, so you're hitting just a bunch of different stuff. Once you start getting into the higher levels, you can start using different builds on this. Like I said, I think the most actually effective build that I ever used on this weapon was a maiming strike build, but again, it's not very fun, and this weapon is more than viable without using that maiming strike build, so I would recommend just kind of playing with it like I did and figure out your own build. There is so many different good builds for this. I would recommend building with a little bit of status and a little bit of crit in mind. Again, not really a mixed build, but Weeping Wounds is definitely awesome to get those slash procs. If you are going to put a corrosive on here, you could probably pull Spoiled Strike out. I don't think you'd be able to go all the way to corrosive because unless you're going to pull Weeping Wounds, but then again, you don't really have a super high status chance. So take that as you will. And again, remember, there's no end-all be-all build for pretty much any weapon. You can play with it and find whatever works for you. Now to a weapon who I gave up my nostalgia for. That broken war I was talking about earlier with Nikana Prime. Yeah, this is why I started using the Nikana Prime. To be completely honest, I turned it into the war. Well, the war very quickly became my favorite weapon. This is still my most used melee weapon. It's an amazing effective weapon. It has a little bit of a ramp up until everything kicks in, but you'll find that it's very effective. I don't really have a mixed build in this. It's very crit based. I have a little bit of status in there, just corrosive, just kind of help out with heavily armored enemies later on. This thing does have a pretty decent ramp up time, but once you get into it, I'm using Cleaving Whirlwind, so once you get into it and actually start getting those crits, this thing just takes off. Being impact is not the greatest, but I mean, it's definitely viable for anything you want to run with it. This was pretty much my main weapon that I used. I had other weapons equipped, but I don't think I ever shot a weapon when I was using this. It just does quite frankly ridiculous damage. And if you're using somebody like Octavia or Rhino, you start buffing this with your Roar or your, I forget the name of it, Octavia, but Octavia's fourth ability, this thing just absolutely shreks. It does everything that I wanted it to do as a melee, and for such a heavy blade, it actually swings pretty quick. Obviously, I'm using Berserker, but even at base, it swings okay, better than the Fragor. So, really cool looking, does really good, and just so high up on the list pretty much solely because of the nostalgia that it has. Now, everything I said about the war is more true with this. You can't see from the skin, but this is Gala Prime. As you can see, for comparison, this to the Zenistar, this is what the skin was supposed to look like. It's just a weird glitch that they decided to keep in the game, thank goodness, for the Zenistar, and it's just obviously made it make this list, so doing something for the weapon, if not much. So the Gala Prime is basically the war upgraded. It is everything the war is and more. Same thing, set up with the exact same build, slight corrosive based on very strong crit, and we're going to be running Cleaving Whirlwind. This takes a little less time to ramp up and does the exact same thing, only the one big downside that I have with the war making impact, this is slash. So, like, the best damage type in the game, and it just brutalizes. Once you get into something like higher level missions, I would definitely run something like a Rhino for this, just so you don't get hit while you're ramping up. If you're gonna run something with speed like a Volt, just to cut the ramp up time, because once you get going with this weapon, there's really not much realistically that's gonna stop you. It's just that ramp up time that kills you on these heavy blades. This and the war have it the same too. Same as the Atarax, it's really just that short ramp up time that's gonna kill you. So slow that ramp up time, or speed up that ramp up time, sorry, as much as you can. And you'll slow the time that it takes for you to die. Pretty much everything is gonna die in your wake. Gala Prime came out with Necros, and it is just a monster. It works with everybody. You don't need Life Strike on it with pretty much any Warframe. If you are going to run Life Strike on it, then you're really going to be missing out on status, because I would not remove anything for the crit. This weapon is a crit monster, so that is the Gala Prime. Now, I might catch some flack for putting this weapon ahead of something like the Atarax, the Telos Boltors, or Gala Prime, but the Rudo. Now, this weapon is not only ridiculously fun to use, it looks super cool. You're kind of like an infested Wolverine, but it also adds some cool things to your feet. It just looks great, and it performs amazing. The cool thing with this is every time you get a crit, it adds a healing over time effect, stacks up to 5 times. Now, this is a weapon that I really love running crit damage. Everything is crit. I have no status on this at all. I might be looking at getting rid of Spoiled. Maybe True Steel, we'll see. Putting in some Corrosive into this, but this is how I run it so far, and I've had no problems at all. You get up to ridiculously high levels, up into the sortie levels and stuff like that, that even high-end survival, and you have no problem with this. The healing is amazing. I'm not even going to put my Iron Skin on. This thing is just... Besides the fact that it's dancing around like a freaking death ninja, this thing is just an absolute monster. As you can see up on the top right there, the healing effect is just insane. My Rhino is built basically for power strength, and that's it. There's no survivability when my Iron Skin is off. And as you can see, I'm taking quite a bit of damage and healing it right back. This weapon is viable at all levels simply because of that healing effect. It does really good damage, as you can see there. I took them out just as fast as any other weapon, but that speed is the main strength of this weapon. You're hitting so fast, so many times. It's just so good. Healing, quick attacks, crazy viability in the end game because of the healing and crit damage. The only thing that is a downside to this weapon that I see is it is a puncture weapon. I would prefer to have a little bit of slash. I would prefer to make it a slash just from the way it works, but I guess it would make sense to be a puncture weapon. It's basically just needles in your fist. But that's why it's at number 1. It's just overall usefulness, its looks, its everything just works together so well. So yeah, those are my top 10 favorite weapons in Warframe. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, press the like button. If you didn't, press the dislike button. And if there's anything you guys want to see, put it down in the comments. Very appreciated if you subscribe. Tell your friends if you were entertained by this. And this is Max signing off. See you in the next one.